So, with the NBA trade deadline coming in about 2 weeks or so, I figured in today's video, let's talk about one player from every NBA team that should be traded. Now, the likelihood of every single NBA team making a trade at the deadline is a little low. However, if they do make a trade, I believe whatever player I list for them should be involved. But don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and let's get right into it. Starting with the Sacramento Kings, I believe they should 100% trade Demar Derozan at this trade deadline. Demar is 36 years old and really serves no purpose to the future of this Sacramento Kings team. The absolute best case scenario for this team is the 10th seed, a play-in spot in the Western Conference, and I just don't think that's worth paying DeMar DeRozan $25 million, Zach LaVine $40 million, Domantas Sabonis $40 million. Like, if I'm the Kings, I'm blowing this whole team up, but the first guy that should be gone is DeMar, because he's basically on a one-year deal. The second year isn't guaranteed, and he's actually been really good. Although he is 36 years old, I think he could still provide some decent production offensively to any team that trades for him. I like the Milwaukee Bucks, maybe the Pistons. On second thought, I don't really like the Pistons, but any team looking for easy offense without having to trade a lot for him, DeMar DeRozan could be a sneaky good option. For the LA Clippers, I have Bogdanovic, who is 32 years old. At this point, I don't really believe he's much more than a minimum contract type player in the NBA. Not much of a defender, not much of a playmaker. He's a decent shooter off the catch, but his real bread and butter is creating his own shot in the mid-range area. At this point, like I said, he's not much more than a minimum contract type player, but for this Clippers team, he's making $18 million on the last year of his deal. And with how good the Clippers have been playing lately, I'm assuming they're going to make some upgrades at the deadline to push for a playoff spot. And if they do make a trade, you can almost bet Bogdan's $18 million salary will be the first thing out the door. For the Toronto Raptors, I have Jakob Poeltl. Now, this isn't necessarily because of a play issue. I guess technically it is, but that's not necessarily my gripes with Jakob Poeltl on this team. Jakob is the perfect example of a 79 to 80 overall in 2K. He does everything at an okay rate. He can block shots well, I guess. He's a decent rebounder. He's okay around the rim. Like, you get where I'm going with this. He's just fine. But the Toronto Raptors gave him an extension that I really don't believe they had to this offseason, and it's not looking great. They gave him a 3-year, $84 million contract extension that will pay him $27 million at the age of 34. All that money for 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. Now, I'll give him some grace. He has been injured this year, but he only played 57 games last year, 50 the year before that, 26 before that, and the Raptors still gave him that mega extension. That was just a bad move by the Raptors, plain and simple. And if I'm them, I'm on the trade market doing everything I can to get off that contract and make an upgrade at the center spot. For the Washington Wizards, they must trade Chris Middleton because he's making over $30 million on an expiring contract, and fuck it. If I'm the Wizards, I already got Trae Young for dirt cheap. There's so many stars, young stars in particular, around the league that have little to no trade value right now. If I could get my hands on a Zion Williamson or a young player like that who just needs a change of scenery, who's on a bigger deal than maybe the market wants to pay for him, Chris Middleton will be out the door, and he's the perfect expiring contract to trade, and the Wizards aren't bringing him back. So if he's not traded, then I would just assume he's going to get bought out. For the Golden State Warriors, they must trade Jonathan Kuminga. I am sick and damn tired of this Jonathan Kuminga situation. It's been like in the headlines, and this feels like the most uneventful, least deserving of media coverage type story ever, because nothing happens. Kuminga's like, hey, I want out. This isn't the best situation for me. The Warriors are like, okay, we're still not going to trade you. Just kind of, you know, sit on the end of the bench until the year's over. And then we hit restricted free agency. He still wants out, but they bring him back on a 2-year team-friendly deal with a team option on the second year. And Kuminga, yet again, wants out and wants traded, and the Warriors are still not budging. But for the love of God, get him on a team that will actually give him minutes. I don't even care if he's a star anymore or if he's an all-star, if he's good. I don't care. I just want to see what he'd look like consistently getting 25-30 minutes a night. For the Portland Trailblazers, I'm going to say Jeremy Grant just because he's on a big old contract, making over $32 million for the next 3 seasons, and they have to bring back Toumani Camara in this offseason on a contract extension. I don't know what the market looks like for Jeremy Grant because even at 32 years years old, he's still pretty good. I mean, he's decent in the mid-range. He's a solid scorer. I think the Lakers could be interesting for him. I think the Heat could be interesting for him. But if I'm the Trailblazers, I'm trying to get off that contract. For the New Orleans Pelicans, DeJounte Murray should be traded. Now, what's going to suck about trading DeJounte is the fact that you gave up Dyson Daniels and a first-round pick for him. Dyson Daniels has become one of the better defenders in the NBA, and DeJounte Murray tore his Achilles not that far into his Pelicans tenure. And that's an injury he's still recovering from. I don't know when he's going to be able to come back, but you already have Jordan Poole on the roster making over $30 million a season. You have Jeremiah Fears, who already looks great. You have Jose Alvarado, who's been a solid backup point guard for you over the last few years, and DeJounte's about to be 30 years old. He just doesn't match the timeline, and there are teams out there looking for point guards. For the Dallas Mavericks, they should trade Klay Thompson. Klay is 35 years old. He's dealt with multiple knee injuries. He's clearly not the same player, and the Dallas Mavericks aren't close to competing for an NBA championship. Klay signed there thinking he would get to play next to Luka, thinking he'd get easy looks from three due to Luka's gravity, and now Luka's gone, and Klay's having the worst season of his NBA career right now. The Mavericks also have Max Christie, who's been really good this year, and at this point is probably better than Klay. So see if you can trade Klay, get him on a contending team in the latter years of his career, and free up those extra minutes for Max Christie. For the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to say Josh Green, who has 2 years remaining on his deal, making a little over $13 million a season, and he's just not very good at anything, like at all. He looked like a promising, decent role player in his younger days in Dallas, but he was playing next to Luka, and since he's become a Charlotte Hornet, he's basically lost all of his offensive touch, and he's not much on defense either. I mean, he's not a guy you can just blow right past and just completely forget about, but he's not going to change the game defensively. And he's on a $27 million contract right now. If I'm the Charlotte Hornets, I'm trading him. Next, for the Memphis Grizzlies, I think they should be trading Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's making $21 million a season over the next 2 years on his current contract, and he's just simply not worth that level of money at this point in his career. He's not the defender he was, he's not the three-point shooter he was, and doesn't provide much of anything else on the floor besides those two things. And Memphis is already paying Ja Morant, who I could have put at this spot in the video, but I don't think they necessarily have to trade Ja Morant, but I do think they have to trade KCP. But like I was saying, they're paying Ja, they're paying Santi Aldama, they got to pay some younger players on the team, and there's no point in giving KCP $21 million a season to rot on the bench. For the Boston Celtics, I believe they should be trading Anthony Simons, who's on the last year of his current contract, making $27 million this season. If the Boston Celtics are looking to maybe make an upgrade at the center spot, or maybe add another guard to the roster that just fits their system better, Anthony Simons will probably be traded, considering outside of Derek White and Jaylen Brown, he's really the only other guy on this roster making that top level of money. Anthony's been fine in Boston, but he's not much of a team player offensively, and like I said, just isn't much of a system fit with the Celtics, so I think he'll be better elsewhere anyways, and I don't think the Celtics will have him on the roster past the trade deadline. For the Atlanta Hawks, I'm going to say Kristaps Porzingis, who's in the last year of his deal making $30 million this season. If I'm the Hawks, I'm trading Kristaps, not because he's a bad player or a bad fit with this team. I actually really love his fit as a stretch big next to even Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, those forwards. It's just, Kristaps is a great fit. But the health, man, the reliability, he's just one of the least reliable players in the NBA right now. And if I'm the Hawks, I don't want to gamble with Kristaps' health issues come playoff time. I want somebody that's going to be there and available to help out Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels offensively when it comes to that time in the playoffs. Because this team should be a playoff team. In no way should they be a play-in team, miss out. No, they should be top 6. For the Philadelphia 76ers, Paul George, I mean, is there really anybody else on this roster that could have even been close to the level of needed to be traded as Paul George? Now, as himself the player, Paul George, he's not a bad fit for this Philly roster at all, and he really could be a good fit for a lot of rosters around the league, a three-point shooting wing who can provide some solid defense, but he's making so much money with 2 years left on this deal. No, pardon me, 3 years left on this deal with a player option for his age 37 season that will pay him $57 million. That is by far and away the worst contract in the NBA. That's just crazy that the GM gave Paul George that and is still there, like, operating. It's just diabolical. But yeah, I'm not saying there are suitors out there looking to trade for Paul George, but if I'm Philly, I would really love to get off that contract. For the Brooklyn Nets, I think you should be trading Michael Porter Jr. He's been unreal as far as shot making goes this year. He's shooting unreal percentages at a crazy clip, and this was kind of the guy that some expected coming out of high school. Michael Porter Jr. went a little bit later in the draft. I don't know why I'm getting into this, by the way, but I think it's interesting. Because of a back injury, he fell in the draft, but he really should be like one of the best players in the world. But if I'm the Nets, I'm trading him now because his value is peaking and he only has 2 years remaining on this deal. He doesn't really fit the timeline as far as this rebuilding team goes. So if I can scoop an extra 2 first-round picks out of Michael Porter Jr. at the deadline, maybe his value is even higher than that, I'm 100% pulling the trigger. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, you have to trade Mike Conley, who's on the last year of his deal, making a little over $10 million this season. He is in his late 30s. He might even be 39, or he's either 39 or 37, still crazy old to be a starting point guard in the NBA. And to be fair, he's still a decent and impactful player defensively and offensively at this stage of his career, but the Timberwolves need a lot better than just Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham to help out Anthony Edwards in that backcourt, because I don't see them going any further than the second round of the playoffs without legitimately addressing the point guard spot at the trade deadline. For the OKC Thunder, I believe they should be trading Ousmane Dieng, who they selected in the lottery a few years ago, but unfortunately, since this OKC Thunder rebuild really took off and now they're NBA champions, there's just really zero room outside of garbage time for Ousmane Dieng to prove that he's an NBA player, and he's on the last year of his deal, so I would be trading him to a rebuilding team, maybe for a second round pick or two, to see what he's got on a team that can actually give him minutes. For the Phoenix Suns, I'm gonna say Nick Richards, who really has just fallen out of favor with the Suns since they got Mark Williams, which is kind of crazy because Mark Williams and Nick Richards went from being teammates on the Charlotte Hornets to both being traded for by the Phoenix Suns. But at last year's trade deadline, Nick Richards got the starting job in Phoenix and he looked really good, but ever since losing that starting job this offseason, he's been pretty bad off the bench. So I would trade him because he's in the last year of his deal, and that's $5 million of salary that you could use to maybe go out there and get you a real player. For the Detroit Pistons, it hurts to say this because as a Jaden Ivey truther, I'm gonna have to say the Pistons should be trading Jaden Ivey at the trade deadline. Now, it's not necessarily because I've given up on Jaden Ivey, it's just I think he's better off suited in a place that maybe isn't trying to compete for a championship right now, because he's been buried in the rotation with Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, and Malik Beasley last year. There's just been a lot of moving parts at the two-guard spot, and Jaden Ivey, who's due for a contract extension this summer, I don't believe we'll be receiving that from the Pistons, so they should trade him in a package for a player that can help them compete for a title right now. For the San Antonio Spurs, I'm going to say Kelly Olynyk, who's in the last year of his deal, making $13 million this season. That's $13 million free that you can go out there and see what you can get on the market for an upgrade over Kelly Olynyk, who at this point is still an NBA player. He's decent, but he's 34 years old and doesn't provide much of an impact for the Spurs. For the Rockets, I'm going to say Dorian Finney-Smith, who's been pretty bad since returning from injuries. His legs look cooked, his three-point shot looks cooked, and he's not the level of defender he was in years prior now that he's 32 years old. And the Rockets, for some reason, gave him a 4-year deal in free agency, even though he didn't even look that good on the Lakers. I don't know. I didn't really like that move. It doesn't make much sense now, and you really don't need Dorian considering you have Kevin Durant, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., like, you're just kind of paying him for no reason. For the Indiana Pacers, I'm going to say Benedict Mathurin because this team has made it pretty clear they're not going to offer him a long-term extension this summer, so you might as well trade him, see if you could get a first-round pick out of him, or see if you can get a center that you can go into next year with Tyrese Halliburton, maybe an Ivica Zubac, maybe an Onyeka Okongwu, somebody you can be excited about at that spot, and maybe he's involved in a deal like that, or maybe he's just traded straight up for picks. The Pacers don't plan on bringing him back, so you might as well trade him because he's way too good of a player to just let walk in free agency for nothing in return. For the Denver Nuggets, I'm going to say Zeke Naji, who's really not been that good of a player since getting that 4-year, $32 million extension from Calvin Booth. or it was Calvin Booth, right? That's the Nuggets GM, I think. But yeah, he got that contract for looking like a decent, promising young big man, but at 6'8", without a real three-point shot or defensive presence, I mean, he really just has no uses out there for the Nuggets. And I'm sure Denver, who's already an expensive team as is, does not want to be paying him $8 million this season and next season, so I would expect him to be traded. For the LA Lakers, I'm going to say Jared Vanderbilt. Now, trust me, he's not the only guy I could have talked about. I could have said Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Knecht, but the reason you have to trade Jared Vanderbilt is because not only does he suck, like probably the worst offensive player in the league, he can't make layups, he can't shoot threes, I mean, he just can't do anything on that side of the floor. He's actually on a long-term deal, 3 more years left on this contract, paying him over $10 million a season. Meanwhile, Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber are both expiring, so you don't really have to worry about that. So if I'm the Lakers, I want out on Jared Vanderbilt, and I would love to use his contract to get a player that can actually work next to Luka and LeBron. For the Orlando Magic, it is 100% Tyus Jones. He has to be traded. He's been really bad in Orlando and looks like one of the worst free agency pickups of the offseason. If I'm the Magic, I'm using the $7 million I gave to him. I'm trading it out for a scoring guard that could come off the bench for Jalen Suggs, because Tyus Jones, I mean, he's never been a scoring guard, but I believe that's what the Magic need. He's just not a very good fit. He's timid with the ball, he's not a good defender, and he's not a good shooter, so trade him. For the New York Knicks, I'm sure every Knick fan watching this already knows what I'm about to say. Guerschon Yabusele has got to be traded. The second he touched down in New York and got that 2-year, $12 million deal, he went straight to the buffet, and that was the end of that. Last year for the 76ers, he was actually a productive role player that could play good defense and stretch the floor. This year, he's too slow to stretch the floor or play defense. For the Utah Jazz, I'm going to say Kyle Anderson, because he's on a 2-year deal and he's in his 30s. He's not getting any run with the Utah Jazz simply because he's too good of a role player at this point of his career to be getting minutes for a team that is trying to lose. And there are a few teams out there that could use a Swiss Army knife type forward that is Kyle Anderson to play some defense and hit some threes. So if I'm the Jazz, if I can get any type of value out of Kyle Anderson, I'm 100% trading him at the deadline. For the Miami Heat, I'm going to say Terry Rozier, because he's on the last year of his $26 million deal and he's like in jail. Where is Terry Rozier? He's obviously away right now under federal investigation for something gambling related. I don't know, but he is on that expiring $27 million contract that the Heat would be straight up stupid to not use to go get a real deal player. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, it has to be Lonzo Ball. I don't even want to touch on how bad Lonzo has been for the Cavs, because I just feel bad. He's battled his way back into being in the NBA with these severe knee injuries. I'm pretty sure he has a dude's whole nother knee in his knee. I worded that terribly, but I'm happy he's back in the NBA. However, he's just been really bad for the Cavs this year. He's not been much of a shooter, and he's not been a point guard type playmaker for this team really either. And that was a really big hit to Cleveland's offense, was losing Ty Jerome in the offseason and replacing him with Lonzo Ball, who's just not been as good of a system fit. And if I had to bet, the Cavs, who are already one of the most expensive teams in the NBA, will be looking to trade Lonzo Ball and that contract they just gave him this offseason. For the Chicago Bulls, it has to be Patrick Williams. Now, Patrick Williams has been a complete disaster pretty much since being in the NBA. He was selected top 5 overall in 2020 and just never developed, offensively at least. He's a solid defender, especially in the post. He just doesn't excel at many things on the NBA court, and he's being paid $18 million over the next 5 seasons on this current extension the Bulls just gave him. He's not even close to being worth that level of money, and the Bulls should explore trading him. And for the final team of the video, the Milwaukee Bucks, they have to trade Kyle Kuzma. And not even necessarily because he's been bad for the Bucks, because he really hasn't. He's still a productive NBA player. I feel like people forget that sometimes, but the Bucks will be desperate at the trade deadline, trying to get anybody they can to convince Giannis to stay long term, and there's just zero chance that you can make a type of trade of that magnitude without including Kyle Kuzma's contract in it. But anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. Let me know what you guys think down below about the NBA trade deadline and what's to come. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope to catch you guys in another one really soon. Until then, I'm out. Deuces.